Dear fathers, sisters, brothers, and members of the Union of the Catholic Apostolate, I wish you all a very joyful celebration of the feast of Blessed Elizabeth Sanna. The sixth video presentation of the Pallottine Institute at Prabodhana in Mysore narrates a brief life history of Blessed Elizabeth Sanna, the spiritual daughter and one of the first collaborators of Saint Vincent Pallottine. Pope Francis numbered her among the blessed on September 17, 2016. She was born in Quadragnanos province of Sardinia, Italy on 23rd April 1788 to the parents Salvatore and Maria Domenica Lai. She was the second of 9 children. Her father was a city mayor of Sardinia for some years. He was well known for his generosity towards the poor. Elizabeth Sanna therefore enjoyed sufficient wealth, social standing, and good reputation in her hometown. She had her uncle Luigi as a priest, and her brother Antonio too was a priest. Thus, Elizabeth Sanna was blessed to grow up in a spiritual and religious environment from her childhood. When she was 3 months old, she was affected by smallpox. The aftermath of this infection left her with a permanent impairment of the free mobility of her hands. Many witnesses from her family and neighborhood would say that there was not a word of complaint heard from Elizabeth about this difficulty. Her parents were concerned about Elizabeth as she grew into teen age. They wanted to get her married and settled in life. This plan of the parents was in direct contrast to her long cherished dream of entering into a cloister to spend her life in prayer and mortification. Finally, after repeated requests, especially from her mother, and having consulted her spiritual director, Elizabeth welcomed Mr. Antonio Maria Porcu as her husband on 13 September 1807. 7 children were born into this marriage, and 2 of them returned to the Lord at a very young age. After 17 years of married life, her husband died in 1825, January 25th. Once again, her resolve to become a religious resurfaced. In 1829, she discussed with the Vicar General of Sardinia about her desire to become a religious. At the same time, she continued to take good care of her children in every respect. Her parents and her brother Antonio Luigi supported her family. In the same year, she was encouraged by the Lenten preacher Father Luigi Paolo to make a pilgrimage to the Holy Land to experience the Lord and to get a miraculous healing of her hands. In 1831, she left for Holy Land in the company of her confessor, Father Giuseppe. During her journey, the impossibility of proceeding to Holy Land was understood because of the rough weather and her ill health. Hence, they traveled to Rome to continue their pilgrimage. She got accommodation near the sacristy of St. Peter's in the Vatican, in the attic of an adjoining building. It had practically no facility to live well. She practiced complete poverty in every respect. She remained in the same room till her death. For her, being in Rome was a painful pilgrimage. She knew only her dialect to communicate. Although she was consoled to know that her children were well cared for by her parents and brother Father Antonio, yet her desire to meet the children grew stronger. She continued to suffer rheumatic pain, relentless headache, and her 2 arms were practically lifeless. Moreover, she experienced insults from unruly children from the neighborhood by seeing her in such a poor attire, which was repaired many times over. She loved her poverty, she loved her illness, and she loved all these insults. Perhaps on June 11th, 1832, she met Saint Vincent Pallottine and submitted to him for his spiritual direction. Her sickness continued to grow worse, and she was never able to travel back to Sardinia. The churches, the hospitals, the streets of Rome became her field of apostolic activity. She would participate in masses at St. Peter's Basilica, recite rosary several times a day, and spend many hours before the Blessed Sacrament. Many bishops, priests, religious came to seek her spiritual counseling. They strongly believed that the Spirit of God spoke through Elizabeth. Her health got deteriorated and she died on 17th February 1857. Father Grappelli, who was her spiritual advisor during the last years of her life, affirmed her whole life was a continual prayer, meditation, and union with God, to whom she addressed and offered prayers of petition, good deeds, and all her struggles. All her life, she was committed to expiation through acts of sacrifice. She was unable to use her arms like other people. She could never bring food directly to her mouth, comb her hair, wash her face, or complete the sign of the cross. Yet, she had managed to take care of her children, her home, and had looked after the cooking and the fields, led informal gathering of mothers, families, and young people, and even tended the sick. Blessed Elizabeth Sanna is a model for a life of simplicity and suffering. In her, we find that deep-rooted desire for a life of sacrifice in a cloister, but had to obey the parents and become a good wife and a good mother. God directed her in a mysterious way, whereby she reached Rome and submitted to Father Vincent Pallottine as her spiritual director. On the one hand, her desire to get back to her family grew ever stronger, and on the other hand, her physical ailments prevented her from any travel. Her life was a life of total submission to the will of God. Thus, in her simple spiritual practices like recitation of the Rosary, adoration before the Blessed Sacrament, and participation in the Holy Eucharist brought her closer to God, and she shared her spiritual strength with others. Father Raphael Emilia said Elizabeth was one of its main promoters since the beginning of the Society of the Catholic Apostolate. In 1835, she became member of the Union of the Catholic Apostolate. As the Church remembers her especially on 17th February, we pray that we too may follow the Lord, who leads us through ways that are less familiar and often mysterious. I wish you all a very happy feast of the Blessed Elizabeth Sanna. God bless all of you.